reconvene the Planning Commission Special Closed Session meeting for March 28th. Mr. City Attorney, closed session report.
Thank you, Chair DiArco. There's no reportable action.
Okay, thank you, sir. We will then adjourn the closed session meeting and then call to order the Planning Commission regular meeting for Monday, March 28th, 2022. And Commissioner Areth, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
After me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Areth. And a roll call, please.
Chair DiArco?
Here.
Vice Chair Zick?
Here.
Commissioner Rojas?
Here.
Commissioner Toller?
Here.
Commissioner Russell?
Here.
Commissioner Vivar?
Here.
Commissioner Areth?
Present.
Okay, thank you very much. We have no announcements and presentations on tonight's agenda. This brings us to public comments. This is an opportunity for the public to address the Planning Commission meeting on items that are not on tonight's agenda but are within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Members of the public who wish to speak during public comment can come to either one of the podiums. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, and I will be running a clock up here, and you'll have a little timer that'll go off to tell you have 1 minute left. And then if the members of the public tonight wish to speak, it'll be helpful if you move things along, if you can kind of line up on the sidewalls if you're going to speak, and then we'll just go back and forth. So members of the public wish to speak to the Planning Commission tonight on items not on tonight's agenda, we'll start doing that now. So if there's any members.
Chair, if I may?
Yes, Ms. Lee.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify for the public, the Planning Commission, as well as myself, received a number of emails today from, I believe, folks who might have been concerned that there are specific cannabis retail related applications on tonight's agenda, particularly in the area of Cabrillo Street. That's not the case. What's on the agenda tonight is a staff update, essentially study session with the Planning Commission. This is our third one. We've had 2 before this. This is our third of 3. So we'll be finishing up our informational presentation to the Planning Commission tonight. The Planning Commission does not make any decisions tonight. There are no specific applications on tonight's agenda. So I think there might have been some confusing information going around. So I just wanted to clarify that before you speak. Also, if you'd like to receive notification about Planning Commission agenda items in the future, we have a way to do that. The way to do that is to sign up for an e-notification subscription, which you can do online. And I don't know if we have a slide that we can show. Perfect. This will kind of give you an idea of what that website looks like. You would go to www.costamesaca.gov. And at the top of the header of that front page, you click on e-notification. You would type in your email address, and then you have the option to click on the types of items that you'd like to be notified about. And then in the future, when Planning Commission agendas are released, you'll get an email notification. So if you're interested in receiving those notifications for any particular types of projects, types of applications, or specific locations, let us know that way. Otherwise, tonight's discussion will be a very broad discussion of the city's ordinance related to cannabis retail. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lee. Okay, so public comment is open for matters not on tonight's agenda. If you wish to speak, please come to either one of the podiums. I'll ask you to state your name for the record. And we'll start with, yes, ma'am, over here.
Hi. My name is Nicole Lockhead. Good evening. I am a parent of a child who takes classes at Camp Lila. I have interest in this matter as we understand you are discussing impact report from this this evening on retail cannabis in Costa Mesa. We understand that because of Measure X and Q, that retailers as a whole cannot cannot be declined, and please understand that is not our ask this evening. Our specific objection is in regards to 2 applications submitted within 600 feet of a youth center. I cannot believe this needs to be said, but there should not be a cannabis retailer within this distance. I would like the Planning Commission either within this meeting or individually as a follow-up to confirm that no applicant would be approved within this radius of this business. It would be widely irresponsible to approve these for the same reasons that the state protects youth centers, and so should Costa Mesa. There is a matter of safety. It is highly plausible that that impaired drivers will be in and out of these retailers. With such high traffic area, children and their parents walking to and from this center, it is unsafe and it puts you, the city, at risk for death or injury that may occur. There is risk of secondhand exposure from production sale, as well as there is a very real chance that products could be dropped or discarded in front of this business. Products that are designed to look like candy could be consumed by children as young as 3 and have frightening implications if so. We appreciate your logic, rationality, and good sense in this matter of great community interest.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Alicia. This is my son. We are both concerned citizens. So state law requires a 600-foot separation between youth centers and storefronts. The state definition is youth center means any public or private facility that is primarily used to host recreational or social activities for minors, including but not limited to private youth membership organizations or clubs, social service teenage club facilities, video arcades, or similar amusement park facilities. So according to the City Council agenda that was on report as of April 20th, 2021, the Planning Commission indeed recommended to follow the state definition of a youth center, and which broadly defined and listed a number of youth centers within our community, such as the Millennium Barn, Pacific Star Riding Club, arcades such as Chuck E. Cheese, tutoring such as Kumon, Mathnasium, martial arts studios, fitness studios, gymnastics classes, dance, music, art, and similar studio uses.
What am I going to do?
But then the City Council held a meeting and narrowly defined this, right? So which is why we're here expressing our concern. And it excluded music, art, yoga, dance, etc. So while the state definition is open-ended and left the city with the responsibility of determining what type of uses are and are not youth centers, and also left for local jurisdiction to specify different separation distance, we are asking you that you follow the initial recommendation and utilize Camp Lila as an example of what the state defines as a youth center, and do not approve 167 Cabrillo Street or 178 Wells Place. So these applicants, sorry, I know my time is up, but
No,
he
you
just
have-
wanted
you-
to say something. Can
Now
he?
do I go?
That one beat means you have a minute
Oh,
left.
a minute, sorry.
What, now do I say?
Yeah,
Do I go?
yeah, go.
I love Cabrillo. Keep us safe.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I am a resident of Costa Mesa, and I am a concerned parent of a child who takes classes at Camp Lila. I am not here to fight cannabis stores opening in Costa Mesa, but I am here to strongly urge you to not place cannabis dispensaries at 167 Cabrillo and 178 Wells. Both of these locations are in a residential neighborhood, and they are within 600 feet of Camp Lila, which is a children's enrichment center. It is widely known that cannabis stores do bring petty crime activity wherever they open. Stores are broken into, which also brings the threat of car and home break-ins. My child will be taking classes next door to 167 Cabrillo should this dispensary open. She and her peers will therefore be breathing in secondhand marijuana fumes, and they will be exposed to the inevitable car and foot traffic the dispensary will attract. What if a cannabis edible is dropped on the ground and my child eats it and gets sick? What if someone driving under the influence hits a child outside of Camp Lila? Will the city be held liable, knowing that a cannabis dispensary knowingly placed was knowingly placed next to a children's program? If the state declares schools as sensitive use and prohibits cannabis dispensaries from opening within 600 feet of a school, why aren't the same protections applied to a children's enrichment program? There are literally hundreds of other locations that you can put these cannabis shops. As a Costa Mesa resident and as a mother, I truly hope that you consider that the risks of opening these shops in a residential area and next to a children's program strongly outweighs any potential benefit for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your comments. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Narina. I'm here to speak on 2 cannabis locations possibly opening at 178 Wells Place and 167 Cabrillo Street. I was born and raised in Costa Mesa. In fact, I was born at home at 186 Wells Place. I no longer live at 186 Wells Place, but another family with children does. The city of Costa Mesa is planning on allowing 2 cannabis storefronts that I urge not to open. One location being 178 Wells Place, another being 167 Cabrillo Street. I just mentioned that I was born at 186 Wells Place, which is just 2 doors down from where you are trying to open a cannabis storefront at 178 Wells Place. Again, a family with children live just 2 doors down from where you want to open a cannabis storefront. I spoke with this family yesterday, and their expressed concern was that if 178 Wells Place cannabis storefront opened, there would be more traffic, and that they didn't want to have a cannabis shop so close to where they live because they have children. Their children play out in the front yard every day. This family opposes opening the cannabis shop at 178 Wells Place as well as 167 Cabrillo Street. 167 Cabrillo Street is across the street from this family. You may not realize how close these two locations are unless you look at a map or are familiar with that area. 167 Cabrillo Street is currently a hot tub and spa business that has been there for many years. Directly next door to 167 Cabrillo Street is a children's enrichment program. And directly across the street from 167 Cabrillo Street is a family with children as well. Children literally surround these 2 locations that are about to be cannabis storefronts. Not only that, but I'm not sure you're aware of how close these 2 locations are to many other residential homes. Why would you allow 2 cannabis storefronts to open so close, a stone's throw away from where families with children live? There are plenty of other locations these 2 storefronts can go, away from family-filled neighborhoods. Do the right thing. Do not open any cannabis shops on Cabrillo Street or Wells Place. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Catherine, and I am the owner of a business on Cabrillo Street called Camp Lila. My comment this evening is in relation to the discussion tonight on impacts of cannabis retailers to the local area. I can firsthand speak to the impact. I can speak from the heart. As a 25-year resident of this great city, I have invested in it by building a business here. Costa Mesa is called the City of the Arts, and that's just what I've built. An art, music, and yoga oasis for children in the heart of the East Side. If any of you have owned a business, you know it's blood, sweat, and tears, literally, to build one. But what kept me motivated is the sounds of joy and the smiles on the faces that this center would bring to the local kids. Tonight, I am asking you to protect those same smiles, to protect the joy and be the guardians of their innocence by ensuring that no business of this kind could be close to them. There are 2 applicants who are seeking conditional use permitting for addresses 167 Cabrillo Street and 178 Wells Place. These 2 are within 600-foot radius of protection that the state of California deems required for youth centers, which the state defines as the following. Any facility that is used to host recreational or social activities for minors, including but not limited to clubs, arcades, and other youth organizations. Schools and churches are already protected. Why Costa Mesa might even entertain being more narrow than the state and allowing these defies any logic or reason. Camp Lila hosts children and their parents in and out of classes during our operating hours, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 5 days a week. Approving these would be a physical danger to these children and absolutely imminent danger to my business, as it is unlikely any parent would be okay with their children being within such proximity to these substances. Soon, you will have the opportunity to deny these applicants of these specific 2 locations. We are not asking you to deny all. We are merely asking the Commission to uphold the same definition and protection as the state of California, no less. I thank you for your support.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Morgan Martin, and I'm a concerned mother and citizen. Slavery, adultery, these are both things that are and have been legal in the past, but are deemed unethical. Just because something is legal does not make it right. Just because the letter of the law states that there can be a dispensary sharing a fence with my daughter's art, yoga, and music program, where she spends hours every week. That does not make it right. For those who have kids, you understand the conflict of interest and hard position that puts us in as parents and the extreme safety concerns that we have. If anyone thinks these 2 things can coexist closely together, you are wrong. Even if Camp Lila were to operate as normal while a dispensary is built right across that fence, parents would pull their kids out of this wonderful program that has enriched so many of our children's lives. Asking Camp Lila to operate symbiotically with a dispensary next door is to endorse Camp Lila's failure. Gymnastics, taekwondo, soccer, nature, and craft classes, these are all things I've put my daughter on a waiting list for in the Costa Mesa area. Why, you may ask? Because there is a shortage of children's enrichment program availability in our community. Camp Lila is one-of-a-kind children's program that encompasses the arts in many forms. It is a truly magical place, and it would be tragic to take away an amazing learning resource for our children, the future of our community, for only 2 of 60+ dispensaries coming to Costa Mesa, a city that prides itself on being the city of the arts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Montana, and my husband and I are local business owners here in Orange County, and we actually conduct weekly business here in Costa Mesa. In addition, we send our 4-year-old son to an incredible children's enrichment program at Camp Lila, located at 175 Cabrillo Street. I'm not opposed to cannabis. However, I do feel concerned when it comes to a dispensary opening with such close proximity to a children's care facility where I send my son. My greatest concerns are if there is approval for 167 Cabrillo Street, next door, and 178 Wells Place, as being as follows. What will my son and the other children potentially be exposed to? Secondhand marijuana smoke? The type of customer that's attracted to the dispensaries, are they safe? Potentially impaired drivers in and out of this area, which is a heavily family pedestrian trafficked area. I am aware that schools are classified as a sensitive use. However, this children's center is not included in that protection, but it is the same principle. If the state declares there should be no site 600 feet from a school because there are many children present and are at risk, this should be deemed the same despite the differencing in licensing types. I'm sure of most of you on this panel probably have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, or a little one that you love. If you could please consider them as your own, being there at Camp Lila next to a possible cannabis dispensary. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. My name is Ann Mallett. I am also the mother of a parent who takes classes at Camp Lila and benefits from the unique and one-of-a-kind programs that they offer. I'm here to urge you not allow 2 cannabis dispensaries to open within 600 feet of this special place. Dispensaries at 167 Cabrillo and 178 Wells are a direct threat to Camp Lila and the safety and comfort of our children. If 167 Cabrillo were to open, my son and his peers would share a fence with a cannabis dispensary. They'd be subject to secondhand smoke, busy car and foot traffic, likely increased crime. If the state classifies schools as sensitive use and prohibits dispensaries from opening within 600 feet, why aren't the same protections applied to a children's enrichment program? As a single working mom, I can't begin to express in under 3 minutes how special Camp Lila is. I would never be able to drive my son around town to 4 different classes where he could enjoy such enriching programs and socialize with other kids his age. The pandemic has made this even more valuable as he, like all children, have missed out on years where classes just weren't an option. I've seen him blossom since he started attending classes at Camp Lila, and there is nothing else like it anywhere. The city of Costa Mesa should be proud to have a place like Camp Lila. Please don't chase us away. I ask you all to consider the risks of opening these shops in a residential area and next to a children's program. Please do not approve these permits. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Heather. I actually live in the city of Aliso Viejo, but I come all the way over to Costa Mesa specifically for the amazing program at Camp Lila. Because I end up spending my day in Costa Mesa, I end up spending money at the grocery stores, at the small businesses, I dine in the restaurants, and I feel that if there is the cannabis shops close to Camp Lila, I would hesitate bringing my children to the area because of the images that they would see, the smells that they might smell. I would like to encourage you to think of the kids in this situation. I think that a vibrant city is one that is with children, young adults, the elderly. So please consider this and keeping Camp Lila open. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello, good evening. I'm a Costa Mesa resident and mother of 2 small children. I'm aware that Costa Mesa passed Measure Q and cannabis retail is coming to our city. The pressing issue for me is the location of where these storefronts are permitted. My children are lucky enough to enjoy Camp Lila. I cannot tell you enough how special this center has been for our family, especially during the pandemic. My children love it here. I do not think it's appropriate to have cannabis retail in such close proximity to where my children are coming and going. Even though Camp Lila does not share a sensitive use classification like a school, in principle they're the same, and Camp Lila is a far more beneficial use for our communities than another dispensary. There are many other locations that make more sense for Costa Mesa. I know we're close to 17th Street and it's a major retail area, but we're already dealing with horrible traffic flow and parking issues all over 17th Street. Where Camp Lila is, it's a tiny little residential area that I do not think can handle any more traffic. We already have issues as is. As a resident in Eastside, it makes me really uncomfortable thinking about Costa Mesa becoming a destination for cannabis customers. They're gonna be driving all over our neighborhood. I live on 23rd Street that does not connect to the freeway, but I do connect to Newport Boulevard. The speed and traffic is already so dangerous, I'm always worrying about my children and pets. Now to add to that, we may have impaired drivers and added crime to our area. I hope this commission will be discretionary in where these retailers go and try to find better spaces, somewhere with more industrial or retail dense. Or just right off the freeway so they can just pop in and out and go on their merry way. And that's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your comments very much. Yes.
My name is
Good evening.
Thank you for taking time to hear my concerns. I am asking you to deny the application of 2 retail cannabis storefronts, specifically 167 Cabrillo and 178 Wells Place. These 2 locations are in close proximity to a children's center that you know, a church, and multiple residential properties. The safety of our residents and children is at risk if these locations are approved. I'm not sure if you're aware that, no, you are aware that 167 Cabrillo Street would share a fence with Camp Lila, a music, art, and yoga program for children ages 3 to 8. The proximity of these 2 locations puts our children at risk from increased vehicle traffic to impaired drivers, petty theft, secondhand exposure, among other liabilities. There are hundreds of other suitable locations for cannabis dispensaries in the city, ones that won't put our children in harm's way. I ask that you afford this one-of-a-kind children's center in the same protections provided to schools and daycare centers, as they essentially serve the same population. I ask that you protect our residents and homeowners by voting no when the time comes to approve these 2 dispensary applications. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Kimberly Borland, and I am a teacher at Camp Lila. Camp Lila has enriched my life, as well as the lives of the children and families. Each year, families and children become lifelong friends, and connections are continued to grow our community outside of the Camp Lila grounds. the opening of 167 and 176 Wells Place on Cabrillo as well would be a threat to the enrichment that Cabrillo brings to the city of Costa Mesa. I am also speaking on behalf of a Cabrillo Street resident who is physically unable to be here tonight. I am opposed to your commission approving 2 pending applications for cannabis dispensaries at 167 Cabrillo Street and 176 Wells Place. This use is inappropriate for a highly residential area. There is a children's center, Camp Lila, which has small children and families and should not be in the vicinity of a cannabis dispensary. Camp Lila and other businesses shouldn't have the potential for their businesses to be threatened and their rents driven up. An increase in crime, police helicopters circling, and other disturbances are not what the city of Costa Mesa on the east side neighborhood has been over these decades. Thank you for saying no to these applications in this sensitive location. Susan and Frank Calabretta, 446 Cabrillo Street. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Henny Abraham, and I am a resident of East Side Costa Mesa. I go to church in East Side Costa Mesa, and I own a business on West Side Costa Mesa. Last Friday, I was contacted by this amazing lady telling me about what's happening, and I took the liberty of just visiting her amazing camp. And I did not know that it was literally a 2-minute walk from my church. Now, mind you, my church is not only a Sunday school for children, but we also have a homeschooling ministry every Tuesday and Thursday. So that alarmed me because on any Tuesday and Thursdays, we have children that come for tutoring to our church as well. I urge every single one of you to please go and visit Camp Lila. Because when I walked in and when I saw what was being offered to these children, I had to take a moment and I had to just thank her for what she's offering. The heart that she has put into loving these kids to provide these services. I mean, these 2.5-year-olds to 8-year-olds are learning art and yoga, and they can draw better than I can in any given day. The past 2 years has been excruciating on all of us. A place like Camp Lila is a safe haven for parents that need a place for their children. She is extremely modest and she does not disclose this. She does not turn any child away for financial reasons. She actually takes kids in without charging them on scholarship. We need more places like this in the City of Arts because this is what's going to help us come out of COVID and the mental anguish and the emotional anguish on the families and the kids. Take a look around. These are all moms. Some of them brought their little kids. My 2.5-year-old is at home. I'm lucky that my husband was able to come. But that wouldn't stop any one of us to show up and support her. That speaks volumes. So please consider when you go, I know tonight is not the meeting, but for public hearing, please be diligent to your recommendation for our council. They're all your friends, they're all the residents, we're all together, we're all Costa Mesans. But her business needs to stay and it also needs to be duplicated. I appreciate everything that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my
Hello.
name's Olivia Bata. I'm one of the teachers at Camp Lila, and as one of the teachers there, I kindly ask you guys to reconsider allowing further development of the 2 cannabis shops within 600 feet of our beloved children's program. Families of young children and parents have been crucially impacted during the entirety of the recent pandemic. Kids were robbed of vital social relationships and emotional development in group settings, and parents tried their best to keep their kids skillfully engaged and hopeful while all their favorite activities began to shut down. Enrichment youth programs such as Camp Lila that provide an environment where children can learn, connect, and create should be protected and prioritized over marijuana profits in the city of Costa Mesa. I stand with Camp Lila's passionate community of moms, dads, grandmas, grandpas, teachers, nannies, neighbors, and friends who simply want the best for our children and support the way art, music, and yoga can positively impact the human well-being as a whole for generations to come. Please stand by us and our kids. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Cameron Lindy, and I'm a resident of Costa Mesa, and I think it's the best city in the world, but it's all about making the right decisions. My boy, who's 3, loves Camp Lila more than anything in the world, and he always brags about all the pictures he comes home with. You know, I come to this with a commercial real estate twist to it of you guys would see so many conditional use permits come over your desk. You know why you don't? because most retailers will not allow these uses in their big retail centers. They don't want them to impact their Starbucks, the moms and parents shopping. They don't want them around because of everything everyone's talked to today. The reason they're focused on small buildings like this, because these one-off ownerships don't necessarily care. They just want to get their income. But act as if these landlords, act as if this was your property. What would you want to do it? You have the opportunity to do that. You have the opportunity to approve something in the future that's going to bring the property values up. We're not saying no to the cannabis, but put it in an area that's never, ever going to impact kids or families in the future, because once you let one in, you're going to let them in forever. There's tons of industrial product back in deep in Costa Mesa that these can go to. Don't allow them around our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Good evening.
My name is Phil Eiskens. I'm the pastor of the Lighthouse in Costa Mesa Church of the Nazarene. We've had the temporary bridge shelter on our property for 2 years, and I thought I'd bring a little pastor's perspective to all of these folks here that showing great concern for their kids, their families, being somebody who came out of the late 60s, early 70s with the drug use and the marijuana use. I would have to say that if there were an answer, most of these folks would say we don't even want one cannabis shop in our community. So I would just urge the Planning Commission to take extreme discretion on this issue. And I'm not sure that a cannabis shop in any town is a positive thing at all. So with that being said, I just wanted to come here and voice my say on this as a pastor that ministers to folks that struggle with these things. And they're real issues. And I just would just urge the Planning Commission to take great discretion and wisdom in making those decisions tonight, or when you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Chair and the Planning Commission, I'm a property owner here in Costa Mesa, and I own the property on Newport Boulevard, 1773. And then next to it is Winston's Jewelry, and then next to that was a cannabis dispensing. They didn't have a signage over their establishment, but people would go in, and it was like, what's going on in there? Because I'm not familiar with cannabis, but it seems just shady. And they'd go in and come out, go in and come out, and it just doesn't seem appropriate for a business in a residential area. And in fact, I'm part owner of the property right across the street for 167. So I am very concerned, and it isn't a business that you want around any children. Even you may not know what's going on. It's just not appropriate for that area. So I implore the commission to really think carefully. Protect Costa Mesa, because it's a wonderful city. I've spent my life working there, here in Costa Mesa. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your comments. Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name is Keith McGinley. I'm here, like all the other folks here, as a concerned citizen about the cannabis retail storefront locations that are currently under review on Cabrillo Street and Wells Place. Without reiterating a lot of what's been said tonight, I just want to urge you to consider using the broader definition of a youth center that was previously adopted by this commission, instead of the narrow definition of a youth center that was recommended by the cannabis industry. The narrow definition would eliminate places like Camp Lila, that's a music, arts, and yoga program for kids, from being defined as a youth center, which will allow these businesses to open up in close proximity to it. I'm going to kind of go off script here, but as a parent, it's hard to find places like this that are safe, that we can drop our kids off and have them learn and grow. And allowing these businesses so close to a place like this is going to make places like Camp Lila shut down. It's going to be harder for parents to find places to put their kids. So again, I urge you to continue to adopt the broader definition of youth centers, allow Camp Lila to operate, and carefully consider allowing these cannabis retail storefront locations to open up in these locations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Travis Castro. I am a long-time resident here in Costa Mesa, and I am in no way trying to oppose what any of these ladies and gentlemen are trying to do for their Camp Lila. Really what I'm here to do is kind of put some perspective on this. One question that I wanted to open up with by asking is, how many times were the police called to unlicensed dispensary activity versus the bars in the area? I think there's a lot more perspective that needs to be put on cannabis in the sense that it's a medicine and that there is a serious lack of safe access in the community. My concern right now is that I have a location, 1770 Orange Avenue, that I hope to open a cannabis business at. And I just don't want to come under fire because of Camp Lila or any other organization that feels cannabis isn't safe for the community. There is, I think, some misunderstanding about the ordinance. One of the things in the ordinance to make very clear is on-site consumption and smoking is illegal here in the city of Costa Mesa, so that would never be an issue. All cannabis is hermetically sealed and kept in an environment where it's not exposed to the public. There is air filtration systems that are put in these facilities to ensure that there's no smell that would emit to the outside public. I think there's just a real lack of understanding about what's going on and how scrutinizing and much pain and process there is with getting a license for a cannabis dispensary. This isn't something that's easy to attain, and it's very expensive. And the process has actually been going fairly slow. It's not something that everybody is going to be able to do. I think at the end of the day, many businesses are not even going to be able to get to the finish line because there's a lack of funding provided for their businesses to move forward. As you know, the ordinance passed almost 2 years ago, and here we are still going through the licensing process. So I just want to make it clear that safety is a top priority for my business in particularly. I actually live on Cabrillo Street, on 180 Cabrillo Street, so I am a resident of the community, and I don't plan on providing a business that's going to be unsafe for my neighborhood.
Thank you for your comment, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey guys, it's been a while. Iggy, this is another situation where you guys are pinning one business against another, unfortunately. The point is spot zoning. You guys came out with the ordinance 2 years ago. You favored people within the cannabis to open their own stores after Measure X came into play. This is another situation that was started like for like with the sober living. Once you start modifying zoning location, you're limiting the parking requirements. You're dealing with fire hazards. It's dangerous. The city's fought sober living in courts for years, spent millions of dollars, and they're still here. This is a whole new chapter that you guys are bringing into our town. I've been here since 1978. We could stake around, leave the doors open. Not anymore. Please, when you guys sit down in the back room and you deliberate and you do whatever, please put these people and the next generation in your heart. These are your grandkids. These are your grandkids that are going to be dealing with this. We're almost out of here and done. That's the next generation. What are we leaving for them? What lifestyle are they going to have? I used to go to the river jetty for the whole summer, hang out, surf, never even went home. Try to do that now. You can't. They close the beach at 10 o'clock. You're putting more and more pressure on us as citizens and society by these decisions. If the zoning doesn't allow it and they don't meet the criteria that you guys have set forth in passing the ordinance and the requirements, then it doesn't fit. Please, stop trying to put a round peg in a square hole. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you guys keep bending and modifying. You wouldn't like it if it was opened next door to your house. In your original plan, you put Harbor Boulevard and Newport Boulevard, and now these cannabis are going everywhere in town. It's not part of the overlay blanket. So please, when you advise the council as to how many and location, please put us, the citizens that are staying here at night, in your heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak during public comment? Please come forward. Okay. And is there anyone on the phone or Zoom that wishes to speak during public comment?
No, there is not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll close public comment. Thank you. That brings us to commissioner comments, and we'll begin with Commissioner Russell.
Okay, just a couple of quick comments. One, I had the honor of attending the Housing and Services Grants meeting last week, and I just want to report that, the staff did a very excellent job of providing information to the committee and clarifying issues. I also want to say that the committee did their homework. They did an excellent job of asking questions and coming to consensus on what to suggest to the council, and just let you know that your money will be well spent in providing services to the community. Secondly, on another note, I had the pleasure of attending both the walk around the west side on Saturday, and that was, I found out, put together by not only City Councilwoman Arliss Reynolds, but also Commissioner Jimmy Vivar. So good job, you guys. And we also had a bike ride yesterday that was a lot of fun, talking about Susan Price is Smiling. We were there together, looking at the community and contributions that women have made to Costa Mesa. And I want to thank the Historical Society for opening up, especially for us, and answering our questions. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Toller.
I have no comments tonight. Thank you.
Commissioner Rojas.
I have no comment either. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Vivar.
Yes, hi. I'm happy that the community walk was able to happen Saturday morning. It definitely was great to bring the community together, and there's just something special about being able to walk through your community and really being able to experience what the city is like by foot. Because oftentimes when we drive, just zoom by everything, and we don't really get to see what the community is like. And get to understand community character and neighborhoods, and what some maybe hole-in-the-wall businesses are like, or places that we, would otherwise wouldn't see if we weren't able to, if we didn't have the opportunity to go through the community by foot. So it was a great walk Saturday morning, and yeah. So just want to encourage all of you to walk your communities, and yeah, just get to know different places in the city that you haven't otherwise. Even those of us who are longtime Costa Mesa residents will oftentimes not know every inch of the city. So great to be able to do that. And also, last Wednesday, I had the privilege of being able to go back to my old middle school, Ensign Intermediate School, and give a presentation to the students. I was asked by a former teacher to go back, a former teacher of mine, to go back and talk to the students about my journey in school and college, as well as a career and planning commission work in public service. So it was a great opportunity to go back and just help and to inspire the next generation of young leaders in Costa Mesa, and get out there in the community and share my story and get to hear the community's concerns. So yeah, just great to be here. Happy to be of service and to get to know the community. And yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. That's all for me.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Arith.
No comments this evening.
Okay,
Thank
Vice Chair Zick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight, expressing their opinions, their deeply held beliefs, their concerns. I wish all our meetings were as well attended as this, maybe under different circumstances, but I think that community engagement is critical to having a community. I'd strongly encourage everyone to take advantage of the information that Director Lee gave at the beginning of the meeting, whereby you can go to the city's website and sign up to be notified of things happening in the city across a whole variety of activities, whether it's planning commission meetings, city council meetings, or other types of activities that happen in the city. I'd like to think that people are interested in more than what just happens out the window of their house. But I'm really thankful that you came out tonight. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. I have no comments tonight. We have no items on our consent calendar and no public hearings. That'll bring us to old business. So Anna, if you could read that into the record, and then we'll turn it over to Ms. Lee.
Old business item number 1, cannabis retail storefront and non-storefront regulations, informational presentation.
Thank you. Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Chair. As you know, this is the third of 3 Planning Commission informational presentations from staff regarding cannabis retail. We have a PowerPoint this evening that our Assistant Director, Scott Drapkin, will present, and after we'll take public comment and then answer any questions you may have. With that, I want to turn it over to Mr. Drapkin. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. As Ms. Lee mentioned, this is the last of the 3 hearings and presentations that we've reviewed for the review of the recently approved ordinance in 2021 for cannabis. I have a short presentation tonight, and we'll go over some of the remaining topics that we haven't visited and that were discussed during the original hearing and the subsequent hearing after that. And really, what the commission has reviewed for so far, I'll step back a little bit and talk about those for a bit. It'll be a short presentation, really following the order of the report. But at the end of the day, we'll be able to answer questions at the end of the presentation. And basically what this presentation, this series of presentations is meant to provide is just the commission a really good coverage of what the ordinance is about and really explain some of the details of all of the provisions that have been approved by the council. So what the commission really came back with staff was about 12 topic areas that they wanted further review of. And at the last hearing, we went through the first 6, and those included one, cannabis retail establishment separation requirements, security requirements, some parking requirements, the regulations regarding advertising, the noticing requirements, and some of the statuses of the existing buildings and businesses and what was happening with those as this cannabis regulations begin to unfold. The remaining 6 topics that the Planning Commission has been provided for tonight in the report is the questions and again the comments that the Commission brought up during the first hearing or in the second one after that. And it includes the capitalization assessments, the findings for the conditional use permits, traffic issues, cannabis business taxes, a little bit more details on that, the environmental compliance with CEQA, and then also there were some questions about what happens when a cannabis business goes out of business and what happens with their inventory. So staff will talk a little bit on that as well. So the city's HDL consultant who looks over all of our cannabis applications and does background checks, they also do proof of capitalization checks. Basically, they're looking for proof that they have the funding sources and the ability to start up their business. And they submit for these during the process of the application review, and HDL reviews it and then informs staff that they either do or they don't, or they have to come back with more information. Getting some of the primary questions that were asked by the Planning Commission was basically, staff, how are we going to approve these projects, and what will be the measures that we look for when we're reviewing them? And what it comes down to is the review of these CUP findings. These CUP findings are the same findings for all CUPs. That's for all conditional use permit projects, or all projects that require a CUP. And the Planning Commission has to make these findings with these applications before they can approve it. The staff report that will come before the Planning Commission will have these CUP findings mentioned within them, and there will also be a following narrative of what these findings are and how they've been satisfied by a project. If they cannot be satisfied, staff will be recommending some other type of an action than approval, but which could include denial or continuing. With these findings, they have to be made for project approval. The basics of these findings are that they have to be consistent with the general plan and the zoning code. They have to not conflict with the health and safety of the public, and they also have to be neighborhood compatible. So those are basically the three criteria that really fall into these findings. And again, each project will be looked at individually based on that. In regards to cannabis and traffic, with any kind of business that comes in front of the Planning Commission, or even for the city for that matter, we forward these projects onto the city's transportation division and make sure that they're adequately assessed for potential traffic demands and traffic impacts, especially with the change in use. And the traffic division will get back to us and tell us just about how much the impact's going to be, and possibly if there's going to be a need for any type of other information like a study. So with regards to cannabis, we've spent some time on what the traffic related issues are with regards to these businesses, and we've landed on 108 daily trips per 1,000 square feet as the appropriate review criteria for average daily traffic, which is our ADT requirement. That 108 daily trips is based on an ITE requirement. When there's more than 100 or more vehicle trip-ins in the peak hour, the code requires a traffic study. What we're seeing is that most of these projects that are coming in as applications aren't triggering that requirement. We haven't seen one as of yet. So, and then like any other use that is an increase in trips, we apply a traffic impact fee, which is $235 per trip. And that, again, that's like with all businesses. Some of the other questions that the Planning Commission had at the last, actually both meetings, were in regards to cannabis business taxes. These taxes are different than the other businesses for manufacturing, for the X businesses that is, and what the council has landed on with regards to taxes, and the requirement for is they require for 7% of the gross receipts for these cannabis businesses. That also includes for delivery, and when these taxes are collected, 5% go towards Cultural Arts Master Plan and the city's first-time home buyers program. Like with any new business that requires a discretionary approval, it's subject to CEQA, and cannabis businesses are no exception. They generally will most likely fall under the Class 1 exemption, which basically mirrors a lot of some other retail businesses that replace existing businesses, and that there's minor modifications of the existing uses and facilities. However, I did want to note that if we do find an issue, we do look at these applications individually, and if we do find issues, it might potentially explore a greater CEQA review process. But for what we're seeing so far with some of these uses, the Class 1 is applicable. And finally, one of the questions that came up during the discussions in the last hearing was what happens when one of these stores potentially goes out of business, and with their inventories, how is that inventory controlled? And the way that is regulated, it's regulated specifically by the state, and the state allows for the inventory to be destroyed or distributed to another licensed facility, sold or given. And what staff is planning on doing is getting a little bit more details with regards to that and adding that as a standard condition, so the applications that do get approved will include those standard conditions. So that concludes staff's presentation of the last 6 topic areas that the commission was concerned with. Again, at this time, no applications have been scheduled, and really what we're primarily looking for is to provide the commission as much information as we can while we're reviewing these projects. And if we have any questions, staff is available to answer them. Our traffic division and public services division is here to add to a little bit more details if the commission desires with regards to traffic, and they're available. So again, thank you, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Drapkin. We'll start down at the far end. Commissioner Rojas, do you have any questions of staff?
No, I do not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Toller.
Sure. Thank you, staff, for that presentation. That was helpful. Just about traffic impact analysis requirements. I guess that that analysis that we do for these sorts of businesses that are moving in, is that purely for the sake of establishing the fees? The other reason given that we would do that is, it says in the middle of page 3 of the staff report, the city may require design changes or improvements to the local public rights of way. Can we foresee any instances in which a dispensary would trigger some sort of changes to the public right of way, or is this always going to default to fees?
Yes, Commissioner Toller, we have our Transportation Services Manager, Jennifer Rosales.
Ms. Rosales, let me turn the mic on there for you. There you go.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Toller, to answer your question regarding traffic impacts and trip generation, we look at 2 different things. One is the peak hour trip generation to determine whether an applicant or development would require a traffic impact study. And that study, if it does trigger the threshold of 100 peak hour trips or more, that study then is conducted and then determines if there's traffic impact related, if there's traffic related impacts on our city streets. And 100 is the threshold that would require that and where we would potentially see impacts. So since none of these have triggered that so far, then we don't anticipate traffic impacts. Trip generation is also done for average daily traffic, which is what we use to calculate traffic impact fees.
This table A on the top of page 4 of the staff report, I think some things were cut off. Would you mind? I don't want you to have to walk through the whole thing. ADT for existing use credit in the middle of that table there. That number 54. I'm trying to figure out how a business would get credit, especially I'm also looking at the 5% active transportation credit. So if you could address those
Great. Planning Commissioner Toller, so when we do trip generation estimates for both determining whether a traffic study is required, and then also when we calculate traffic impact fees, we also, for all developments, give credit for the existing land use that's there. So when you're looking at the Table A in the staff report, it's showing an average daily trip, so this would be an example for the traffic impact fees of 108 daily trips per 1,000 square feet. The credit shown there, which then generates in this table 325 daily trips. The credit that you're seeing in the table of 54 per 1,000 square feet, the 54 would be the credit for, it's 54 daily trips per 1,000 square feet is what a typical retail establishment is under 40,000 square feet. So that's where that 54 comes into play, then results in the net daily trips of 162 in this particular example for a 3,000 square foot site. And then the ADT is then determined, you take the net ADT times $235 per average daily trip to get the traffic impact fee. The question on the 5% credit for active transportation, that's part of the traffic impact fee that was approved by City Council in December of 2021. When the fee was approved, and as it has been for the last couple of years, active transportation projects are now included with the traffic impact fee. So the fee can be used to pay for active transportation projects that are in the plan and identified as part of the traffic impact fee. And so because of that, it was determined as part of the fee that every development gets a 5% credit to account for the fee being able to be used for active transportation projects.
So it's not a discount on what they ultimately owe, it's a portion of that fund that goes to active transportation improvements in the city.
Correct. However, it's not limited to just 5% towards active transportation projects. It'd be more than that, yeah.
Okay, those are all my questions for now. Thank you.
Ms. Rosales, while you're up there, I'm going to hijack a quick question. Is the 108.4 ADT trip rate, that's an ITE number?
Chair Darkle, yes, that is an ITE number. However, it's the ITE number for a pharmacy with drive-through.
Okay, so obviously probably not a lot of data on cannabis uses yet that ITE can point to. Does that number reflect any credits for pass-by trips?
The 108 does not include pass-by trips.
Okay, so is there anything in the ITE manual that allows for pass-by trips in that kind of, as you said, I think it was pharmacy, drive-through kind of?
Yes, so Chair Darkle, ITE does talk about potential credits for pass-by trips. However, we typically, in the traffic impact fee, we haven't given pass-by credits to the majority of developments coming through.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Russell.
No questions at this time, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Arith. Okay, none?
No questions.
Okay, Commissioner Vivar.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Director Jennifer Rosales. Good to see you. I have a couple questions related to transportation. So one of my first questions is regarding the process itself of the traffic impact fees. I'm fairly new planning commissioner, so I'm not incredibly familiar with it. So forgive me for some potentially ridiculous questions here. But I was curious. I was really kind of curious when reading the staff report that the Transportation Services Department can either have an applicant make infrastructure improvements to city right-of-way improvements or pay the traffic impact fee. So I'm just curious, how does the city determine when a project would either have to do the improvements that the city basically would need the project to do, or pay the traffic impact fee. And in the event that a specific impact, a specific design change or infrastructure improvement is required, what would those look like? So it's a twofold question.
Great, thanks for your question, Commissioner Vivar. I'm going to kind of answer this in kind of two parts. The first part in terms of the traffic impact fee. So any development that generates net new trips is required to pay a traffic impact fee, regardless of any additional improvements that they may do to the street or roadway network or any other improvements that they do. So it's not in lieu an either or, that's a requirement. If development does trigger the traffic impact study threshold and conducts a study and finds that there are impacts, at that point, additional funds are required to help mitigate those impacts, in addition to the traffic impact fee.
I see. And so the staff report also says as well that city staff are the ones that conduct traffic analysis. So is that referring to preliminary traffic analysis or a full traffic study?
Great question, Commissioner Vivar. That's referring to trip generation determination. It's not referring to, staff doesn't do a full-blown traffic impact study.
In the case that a full-blown traffic impact study were triggered, that would be a consultant preparing that on behalf of the applicant and submitting to the city for review?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I can answer that. Our typical procedure is to have the city retain the traffic consultant, and the preparation of the traffic study would occur by the consulting firm on behalf of the city. Okay.
Oh, so the city would have a traffic consultant perform the traffic study. Is what you're saying?
Yes, that's typical. Of course, we are communicating with the applicant as to any information that would be helpful in preparing the traffic study. They are the applicant and the expert on their operation, but the consultant themselves are retained by the city.
In the event that a planning commission may wish to see a traffic study done for a particular retail cannabis application, would that be something that the applicant would be required to hire a consultant to perform that traffic study for them for our review? Or would that still be the city's review?
It would likely be a traffic study that the city's consultant prepared, but I should note that the applicant does bear the cost of the consultant as part of their application fees.
Okay. Regarding pre-existing uses, so credit is given, as I understand, to pre-existing uses or currently existing uses to a specific site. Now, how far back into the past would we give credit for a pre-existing use? For example, let's say we were to give credit for a retail store that was there in the past, or a laundromat that was there, say, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 1 year ago. How far into the past would we give credit to that specific use?
Commissioner Vivar, we typically take the most recent use that was there and give them credit for that use, because those trips have been on the network.
So it doesn't matter whether that was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
Typically, we're seeing that uses are, within the last 2 to 5 years. I'm not aware of any that are beyond the 5-year.
Mm-hmm. I'm just like, for example, thinking if there were to potentially be an empty lot sitting there and then it were to be developed.
Commissioner Vivar, if it's an empty lot, then that would be a brand new development.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry again. Apologize for my questions here. So, from an active transportation standpoint, so I know that the city's review does focus on traffic impacts related to, vehicles and level of service, LOS. But I'm just curious whether or not we would also look at concerns, and this is maybe not necessarily just for cannabis, but just in general for anything that we see here. As of course, the transportation review is part of anything we review here. But would we also, for example, get to see, would a traffic study also, a traffic analysis also include a driveway circulation analysis to make sure that any particularly higher volume of traffic being generated to the site in comparison to previously existing uses might have any sort of detrimental impacts on active transportation infrastructure, so say city sidewalks or any bikeways that we might have or bikeways that we might plan to install or any safe routes to school routes. Would we study whether or not the potential traffic generated would have, would basically increase vehicle to pedestrian or vehicle to pedestrian conflicts?
Commissioner Vivar, typically transportation review of the site includes site access and circulation for all modes. It's looking primarily at the site itself. If a full traffic impact study is warranted, then all modes will be reviewed at that point.
Okay. And so I believe it was at the second or the first of these hearings that we had, I think a number of 211 was being said for trips, sort of peak hour trips, and that was for retail use. I'm guessing that was because there was a preliminary stages of the basically hashing out the city's transportation reviews for retail cannabis. So why was or how did the city come to settle on the 108 pharmacy use? Is there a particular reason that this use was chosen and as opposed to, for example, a liquor store or something that, I don't know, might be seen as more similar or something?
Commissioner Vivar, so the current ITE trip generation manual, the 11th edition, was recently released in September of 2021. This edition has very limited number of studies for cannabis in the trip generation manual. It only has 7 studies with the average size of 3,000. So the data is very limited in the current edition. The staff reviewed the trip generation rates for several different uses, including liquor store and pharmacy with drive-through and many others. In addition, staff conducted research and contacted cities throughout California regarding their trip generation studies and rates as well. And it was determined that the pharmacy with drive-through at 108 daily trips per 1,000 square feet appears to be the most applicable. I'd like to note that this rate is a bit higher than the liquor store rate.
I see. Yeah. Earlier today, I was looking at the ITE 10th edition trip generation manual, and I did see rates for marijuana dispensaries. So I don't know if maybe I read that wrong, and that was either like not something that they necessarily had studied, and maybe it was just calculated rather than studied in the field. But would you be able to speak on whether or not the ITE, even the 10th edition, does have like an established marijuana dispensary rate?
Commissioner Vivar, yeah, like as I spoke a second ago, the ITE, there's the most recent version is the 11th edition, which includes all studies that have been conducted for cannabis use. And there is a marijuana dispensary use with only 7 studies, and very limited data, and with the average being 3,000 and the largest only about 5,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm. So due to limited data, the city thought it was sort of more appropriate to use I guess a more widely studied use, which is pharmacy in this case.
Yes, that's correct. And one of the, also just to point out, one of the cities that we contacted, the city of San Diego, is also using a pharmacy rate, although the pharmacy rate they're using is quite old, and we were using the most recent pharmacy with drive-through rate.
Right, 11th edition. Okay. Do I have any other questions? So, related to tax, then, I'm just curious. So, would is our would, for example, a Measure X manufacturing facility be able to add, say, for example, delivery to their operations, or is that something that would not be able to happen? Would that be its own CUP that we would look at?
Commissioner Vivar, this is Nancy Wynn, Senior Planner. I can help answer that question. Measure X applicants, current Measure X businesses do have the opportunity to add delivery to their business through a minor conditional use permit. In fact, staff has, the zoning administrator has approved about 4 or 5 minor CUPs to add delivery to existing Measure X businesses.
And then so that 7% tax would be applied to just their delivery sales rather than their entire sort of aggregated business.
The adopted ordinance in Title IX does specify that businesses that also engage in distribution and manufacturing that also have a delivery component is only subject to the higher tax, which in this case is the 7% for delivery.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. I think that's all of my questions, Mr. Chairman. I'll defer back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Rosales, real quick. Sorry, Vice Chair Zick, I'll get to you. I have a 30-second question if it takes that long. If in the event a full traffic analysis was done, I would assume that would include VMT, provided the project doesn't screen out?
Commissioner Darkle, that would include a review of that as well.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Zick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions. Mr. Drapkin, the premise of my first question relates to the business tax area, and specifically the statement that indicates that the city intends to use a portion, and I'll come back to that, a portion of the tax revenue for the city's cultural arts master plan, as well as implementation of the first-time home buyer program. Both of those uses seem to be fairly significant and important to the community. So my question is, from your presentation, if we were so lucky as to get $1 million of tax revenue, the 0.5% that you cited equates to only $5,000 of the $1 million that would go to these two uses. I want to make sure I've got that math right.
Maybe I can assist with that. So the intent with the council's decision at the time that the ordinance was adopted, they articulated a desire to essentially funnel 0.5% of the 7% that was collected. So I don't think that 0.5% is intended to be 0.5% on a total dollar amount. I can connect with our finance department and report back to you separately if I'm incorrect on that.
I wish you would, because I also did the calculation of 0.5% of 7%, which actually comes out to be less than 0.5% of the total. So I would appreciate help understanding that specifically. And then a couple of questions related to separation. And I know that was part of last week's presentation, so I'll start with this, the easy question. So the 1,000-foot separation requirement applies to homeless shelters, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Does it apply to churches?
It does not unless the church has a state licensed daycare or school.
Okay. Does it apply to licensed sober living or recovery homes?
It does not.
Okay. And then in our ordinance where we refer to a separation from youth center, I didn't see it in the presentation, and you might not have it in front of you, but do we have a definition of what a youth center is?
Sure. The definition of the code, which is in Chapter 9 for cannabis business licenses, is that any public or private facility that is primarily used to host recreation or social activities for minors, specifically private youth membership organizations or clubs, social services teenage club facilities, video arcades where 10 or more games or game machines or devices are operated, or similar amusement park facilities. And then it says, but does not include dance studios, tutoring, martial arts studios, or similar type of uses.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So I have one kind of, I guess it might be just a clarification question for the benefit of the public. As I understand and hearing the comments during general public comment regarding classifications of sensitive uses, state versus definitions adopted by the city. So I'll ask maybe Mr. Preziosi, what is the distinction between what state law says about what a sensitive use is and the authority state law gives to a local jurisdiction to make its own definitions?
Chair the article, the city has full authority with very limited exceptions to make its own definition and impose its own definition of sensitive use. If you'll recall, under Prop 64, the city has full authority to regulate cannabis and has full authority to prohibit cannabis. So the city has wide latitude in defining what a sensitive use is.
So the language in Measure Q that was adopted by the voters of Costa Mesa, did anywhere in that ordinance or I should say that measure that the community adopted by vote define what those sensitive uses are?
Chair the article, if you recall, Measure Q was an uncodified ordinance. It gave the city council the power to enact an ordinance to allow retail sales and delivery with certain caveats. The definitions of most of those sensitive uses were left to the city council discretion and were not specifically mandated by the voters.
Okay, I understand that. So then in the follow-on, then the sensitive uses that are defined in the ordinance are the product of the city council's discretion, which is an authority granted to them by the state, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, that was the extent of my questions. Vice Chair Zik.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To follow up clarification, Mr. Preziosi, on the Measure Q language, did any language in the measure identify as an intent separation of retail cannabis locations from other uses?
Commissioner Zik, yes, it set forth the separation distance from certain enumerated sensitive uses. The definition of most of those sensitive uses was a matter for the city council to adopt by ordinance, and the method of making that distance, of measuring that distance, was similarly left to the city council by the voters.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet. Okay, if no other questions of staff, I will open public comment on this item as the agenda reflects that public comment will be taken. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this item, please come forward from the audience. Yes, sir. Good evening.
So let me get this straight. So a preschool that teaches kids art and yoga and so forth is not considered a school, yet a video arcade is protected? That's what you guys just discussed. That's insanity. That's absolutely, it's insanity. We've entrusted you guys to make the right decision, and then yet you take a definition and modify it. How? I mean, all the mothers have already left. This is too funny in a sense that you're trying to redefine society by, is it 2 feet or 3 feet? It's crazy. These kids got video games on their cell phones. So if there's 10 kids there and we're going to say that now they're playing a video game on their cell phone, they're protected. Isn't it that simple? Or do we need to get 10 video machines from Atari, like we used to play when we were growing up, and set those in there, and now they're going to be protected? The fact that you guys are going in and trying to modify what a definition of something is by itself wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item in chambers? Seeing no one, Ms. Green or Ms. Oh, please come forward, ma'am. Yes. Good evening again.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Young. I've worked in Costa Mesa since 1971. Of course, I retired in 2006. But my question was about the impact traffic. That study was not done. Is that correct? Did I understand that traffic study required by the applicant?
No, ma'am.
It was not required?
It may be required.
Because as far as I'm concerned, there's no parking. There's no parking for the cars to stop. Where would the cars park to go into the to go into the dispensary? They need to stop and park. Can anyone answer that? There's no parking.
And I'll have staff answer the questions about parking or parking utilization. Is there any other comment?
I was wondering about the traffic because it's a residential place. And that little turnabout on Wells is just a small street.
I understand, ma'am, but we're not talking about a specific location right now. We're just talking generally about...
Aren't we talking about the establishment of the two?
No, ma'am. We have no applications in front of us tonight.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, do we have anyone on telephone? Okay.
Margie, you may provide your public comment.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. I can hear you.
I'm actually on Margie's laptop. You hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. My question is, and it's a little bit contrary to the first gentleman that spoke, but the city council, as I understand it, the city council would be required to come up with definitions. Would that definition be modified periodically based on the makeup of the city council? So for instance, should a more liberal city council come on board, would they then have the, call it a luxury or the latitude to change the definition of what a sensitive business or sensitive organization would be? It's probably a question for the city attorney.
Well, I probably could answer it, but I'll leave it to the city attorney.
Chair Diaricol, would you like me to respond now or later?
No, after, any other comments, sir?
That's it.
Okay. Mr. Preziosi, city council ability to revisit their regulations and definitions.
Thank you, Chair Diaricol. As a fundamental matter of California law, an ordinance is adopted by the city council, can be amended by the city council in certain limited exceptions.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other callers?
No, we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll close public comment. So this was an informational item. And staff, you've received whatever input we've got, and I guess now we move on to starting to look at applications as they are prepared and ready to move forward. Ms. Lee, is that correct?
Yes, Chair, that's correct. This concludes our third of three presentations to the Planning Commission. Staff is working very hard to review the conditional use permit applications we've received, and we'll be agendizing those for Planning Commission consideration at the appropriate times.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and that will take us to new business. We have none, so departmental reports. We'll begin with public services. Mr. Yang.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's no reports from public services.
Okay, development services report, Ms. Lee.
None this evening, Chair.
Okay, city attorney.
No report, Chair Diaricol.
Okay, thank you very much. Members of the public, thank you for coming out and speaking with us tonight. Commissioners, thank you very much for your diligence on this important topic and for the important, good questions y'all asked, and staff for your time. Very much, we thank you for all the hours you put in and providing the information we need to kick off this process. We'll stand in adjournment to our regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting of April 11th, 2022. Good night.